My guest today is Mike Batt, a man of many musical parts and known as a Renaissance man because he does so very much. What are you up to right now, Mike?
I'm very preoccupied at the moment with running my own record label, which is called Dramatico. And I began Dramatico more or less at the time I started working with Katie Melua, who was 18 at the time, so she's 27 now, so what's that? 9 years I've been working with Katie. And in that time, we've built up another if you like, roster of artists, some bigger than others. Cairo Emerald has been a success for us recently. We've had on the label, still do, Carla Bruni, although she's been a bit busy being the French president's
First lady.
Wife and all of that. Lots of nice little adventures and big adventures with artists. The combination of things you have to do to get a project off the ground with your own record label is more palatable for me. I don't have to go schlepping around record companies asking them to please do my project.
You're in control of all the parts, which is so important nowadays.
In the 9 years we've been running Dramatico, even though it's grown and we're broadening it out now by separating out all the dramatic properties into a separate company for things like making animation, a new Womble television series, for example, that sort of thing.
That's what you're working on as well?
Yes. So developing that.
Will that be CGI? What will that be?
It's CGI combined with some rather different techniques as well, so that we can keep the charm of the old series. I don't want to take it off into the stratosphere. I want the charm of the old series to remain. But things like that are the sorts of things that you can do within the context of a small company like mine, which is 12 people working together on projects which interest me and with artists that I'm happy working with.
There are 9 million boys' schools in Beijing. That's a fact. It's a thing we can't deny, like the fact that I will love you till I die.
In fact, how did you find Katie Melua?
Well, I found Katie Melua by going around looking for an artist. I literally, I didn't advertise for an artist, but I thought, as a songwriter and producer, it would be good if I could find a young artist who could front, if you like, in the same way in the old days as, let's say, Dionne Warwick, as they say in America, was the front for Burt Bacharach's songs. I'd found 1 or 2 people and I didn't feel they were quite right, and eventually I thought to myself, no, I better keep looking, and I eventually ended up at the Brit School, and Katie was one of about 40 people who came and played their songs for me. And I think one of the problems when I first met Katie, and I remember writing down, I've still got the bit of paper, I wrote down, small girl, brown hair, sang her own song. That's all I wrote. And I got her to come and see me again with her mum the next day, and she was still doing A-levels, and she sang a great song about Eva Cassidy, which was almost a problem because I wasn't looking for a songwriter, I was looking for a singer. And so we worked for about 6 months together to find out, each of us, whether our music was compatible on one album. In other words, whether my songs would mix with her songs. And we found that not only could I write songs for her, but she could write songs for herself, or we could write together. And it seemed to work on most of those levels. Well, I went round the record business and I couldn't get her a record deal at all. I took her to America.
Why do you think that was? I mean, she's a very talented girl, very pretty girl. Why didn't they see it?
I don't know. Sometimes I blame myself. I think maybe they think, oh, you know, it's just Mike Batt again with another artist. I don't know what they might have thought. Maybe I wasn't cool enough. Partly it might have been because she wasn't mainstream in the way that you would think of as a mainstream pop artist, where you manipulate the pop artist by taking them into the studio and say, sing this song.
But that's what's so good, because it's original.
Exactly. And she did sit in meetings with the presidents of, because, you know, having been in the music business for long enough, I knew these people, with the presidents of the major American record companies, and just sat and sang with a guitar and blew everybody away. And then somehow they lost the phone number after we got home.
How can you make me fall apart, then break my fall with loving lies? It's so
in the end I
easy
said to
to
Katie,
break a heart.
why don't we do it on my label? And she said, great. So we did that, and we took a few risks in marketing her, you know.
How do you mean?
Mortgaged the dog to create a marketing budget. And
So you're
thankfully...
really a passionate person, aren't you? When you believe in something passionately, you'll see it right through.
Well, I'd like to think that was true, yes. Sometimes that can be a negative factor as well. I don't want to talk myself down, but sometimes if you get passionate about the wrong things, you can end up in the ditch. So that's happened to me a few times. But, you know, there's always another ditch or another thing to get passionate about.
I think lots of people have, it's not just a chart from 0 to 100. We've all got careers like that a bit. So if you have a failure, you get up and start again.
Yeah, you just don't talk about them too much, like
no,
on
like that. We
programs
won't
like
talk
this.
about anything like that at all. What I'd like to talk about is you've recently made an album called Songwriter's Tale, have you not? It's a compilation, but it's your voice. It's you singing now. Tell us
That's
about
right.
that.
Well, when I left school, and you've kindly mentioned all the different areas that I've been involved in, the one thing I really wanted to do was to be a pop star. Didn't we all? I mean, you have been a pop star.
No, I never wanted to be
In fact,
one.
I was for a minute a baby pop star, in that I had a hit called Summertime City. And in fact, funny enough, back
How
in
old
those...
were you?
Oh, 23.
Okay.
When I say baby pop star, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
a miniature pop star. I didn't have a big, long career. Funny enough, in the countries where the Wombles weren't successful, I was thought of as Mike Batt, the serious singer-songwriter. So Germany, Holland, Australia, South Africa, lots of different places where I could go and be me, where they wouldn't say, oh, by the way, let's talk about the Wombles. They'd say, oh, by the way, let's talk about Railway Hotel or one of my other songs. It could even be that I had, which I did, quite a lot of hits in other countries where I didn't have hits in England with the same songs. Songs like The Ride to Agadir, which nobody listening today would have heard of. Lady of the Dawn, possibly, but that was a massive hit in Europe and not here. So I had that double existence, where if I wanted to go and be a pop star, I went to Europe or South Africa or somewhere else. And if I wanted to be incognito and not be able to get the best table in a restaurant, I came back to England.
But so you brought all that together in one album, all those songs that other people haven't heard or other people did, you recorded yourself and brought it into the Songwriter's Tale.
Yeah, so I re-recorded the hits which I'd had, which had been overseas hits, with me as the artist. And then what I did was I added to that versions of me singing songs which say, for example, Art Garfunkel, Cliff Richard, David Essex.
The Winter's Tale and Bright Eyes.
Yeah,
and
I just wanted...
Which was the Cliff Richard one?
Please Don't Fall in Love was the hit I had with Cliff. But he also performed on my Hunting of the Snark album.
And as your life passes by, remember how it feels to be children of the sky.
Yeah, compilation. Yeah, that was a year or two ago, and it very happily did enter the top 30. I think it was number 23 or something.
Excellent.
I look at it as a retrospective exhibition. If I was a painter, this would be saying...
There must have been a lot of satisfaction doing that, because you've been able to do it exactly the way you wanted and be the performer.
Yeah, and I do still do concerts, and I just enjoy performing. And it's
what kind of work, when you say you do concerts, do you take out a whole orchestra?
Sometimes. I was happy to be asked to be the musical director of the Stuttgart Music Festival a couple of years ago. In fact, I've done that 2 or 3 years.
How can you close and fail? How can the light that burns...
So as well as the animation for the Wombles, which is on the cards, what next have you planned?
Well, I've got so many plans and not enough time. It's like some people have that problem. It's an old expression, you know, too many women and not enough time. But I have the problem, too many projects and not enough time. You know, you think to yourself, well, you know, it's the tea time of my life.
What is it that you would like to do that you haven't done so far? Is there anything you haven't done so far?
Yes. I'd like to have a hit with the Hunting of the Snark. Bring it back, in other words.
Yeah.
I nearly got to the top of the cliff with that, and I just sort of didn't quite make it. In the West End, I mean, in many other manifestations, it was successful. And
But there have been many shows that didn't make it maybe the first time the way you wanted, and then became big hits afterwards.
Exactly, and I haven't taken it back and tried again. And
do you want to do that?
It's sort of 20 years ago now. I'd like to do that. I've got another musical that I wrote straight after Snark, which is much more serious about the Spanish Civil War, actually. I've got a thing called the Ergo, which is the name of the slug. Ergo the Slug, which is a book I wrote about 15 years ago. And he's a slug who wants to play the piano, but of course they haven't got hands. So it's quite difficult. It's a challenge.
You could play the slide guitar.
He probably could play the slide guitar, yeah, actually. But so he wants to play the piano, and he also wants to marry a fairy, not just any fairy, but a particular fairy. And fairies don't fancy slugs, so he's got two challenges. And we're looking at that. We're developing it as a feature film, as a kind of Pixar-style CGI thing. But that's a massive project,
yes,
and it needs big fundraising to happen. But we're working on it and having fun with that.
Well, whatever you do, I'm sure it will be successful, Mike, and I wish you great success with it all, and thank you so much for coming in.
Nice talking to you.
Nice to talk to you.
Remember